Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is really true, is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smart ass than a dumbass. Because, guys, 34 years ago, I was a dumbass. But today, 34 years later, through the grace of God, I can honestly say now I'm a smart ass. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey. And that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this. There are a lot of people out there struggling, even with health, right? So I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm a recovery coach. All my services to you are free. Please, please reach out. I want everyone to know someone is listening. If you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing, BAM, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, www.geripetito.com. My book is now on audio with my voice, guys. So Simon & Schuster wanted to put my book to audio with someone else's voice, and I was like, absolutely not. So my producer, part owner of Hamilton Radio and owner of Iron Horse Films, Ruben Rodriguez, is now doing audiobooks. So if there's any local authors out there who want to get their book done with their voice, reach out to me, okay? And here's the thing, guys. If you truly, truly, truly cannot afford my book, please reach out to me about that as well. I'm here to help you. So before I introduce my guests, I would like to give a shout out to a couple of my sponsors today. First, I have Ablaze Entertainment and Freedom Rings Festival, Paula Ann, helping survivors of human trafficking to live a life of normalcy. www.freedomringsfestival.com. And the Geri Petito Show is also one of their sponsors. So please, please check them out, because what she's doing is amazing. Thank you, Paula Ann. John Bishop, a.k.a. Johnny B., singer-songwriter, host of the Entertainment Luncheon South, a nonprofit network created for the creative. So he's got a Facebook page, Entertainment Luncheon South. He's also the partner in the Joey D and Johnny B Rockin' Oldies band. And he's also solo as well, guys, if you want to hire him. But I have to give him and his wife, Lenny, a huge thank you, because they put this luncheon on once a month. It's by invite only. If you tell them you know me, I'm not sure if they'll just throw me out or let you in. I'm not sure yet, okay? But it's $20. You get a great lunch, incredible entertainment. Ava Holly's been there. She can tell you it's amazing. And they don't keep a penny of it. See, that's what's so amazing about these two, okay? And they promote all of us like nobody else does. So I just love both of you, John and Lenny, okay? And thank you for everything that you're doing. So I'm going to give another shout out to one more sponsor today, and there's a reason, well, to two more, and there's a reason why. So John Monforto, the man of many faces, singer, actor, celebrity impersonator, and tribute artist. So I gave him the title, the man of many faces. I was introduced to him by Ava Holly, okay? And I gave him that title, but he was given the title by a former Philadelphia mayor as the official Philadelphia Rocky impersonator. www.johnmonforto.com. And he does over 30. And when I tell you incredible, I am not kidding you, incredible. My three favorites, of course, Rocky. Of course, The Godfather. I'm Italian, come on. And of course, Elvis. Thank you very much. So John Monforto and Debbie, we love you. So, last but not least today, Michael Zanman, singer, entertainer, performer, www.mzanman.com. So, Michael Zaman needs prayer, everybody. Please lift him up in prayer. Okay, it's out there now. We can talk about it. His cancer has returned, and he's one of my top probably 5 favorite people. All right, he's amazing, and so I want to share a really cool story about Zaman. So he is a singer, and he's so much fun. All right. And he recorded Mel Carter's song, Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, and put it out on Facebook a few months ago. So he didn't know it, but I sent it to my buddy Mel. Mel calls me and says, Jer, your boy did a great job with my song. I said, could you tell him? We got him on a surprise 3-way with Mel Carter. And I said, Zaman, are you sitting down? Somebody has something to tell you. And he almost cried. I'm almost crying now. Listen, he almost cried. So that would be like Elvis calling me, you know what I'm saying? So that was amazing. And Mel Carter, we lifted him up in prayer for a long time. He's doing so much better, and he's home, and he's doing well, okay? But everybody keep Zaman in prayer. So having said that, before I introduce my star guest here, let me introduce my guest co-host, Miss Ava Holly.
Hey.
She will tell you all about her, but we go back a ways, and she's my sister from another mister. Ava Holly, say hello and tell everybody about yourself.
Sure. Also, John and Linny, John Monforto, Zanman,
Yep.
some of my favorite people.
Right.
So thank you. I'm Ava Holly, and I guess in late 2008, early 2009, I opened for a Star where we host and plan your events. Since the pandemic, we're not really doing much of that. I host a couple of radio shows, one here at Hamilton Radio, which I got through Geri Petito, one at WBNN Network, which I got through Geri Petito. And but I've been doing radio since college.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. I'm a blogger, an international blogger, and sort of a journalist. I cover some local events, and we get them in the local paper, so that's kind of fun. And we also drive autistic kids for a state program through my company. As we began driving people to events, one thing led to another, and we wound up taking these kids to their programs. So a lot going on.
Hold on. So I met that family, and I met the kids. We actually had them in studio.
Yeah, and
I love them.
they're doing their book with Ruben.
Now the mom's doing
Yeah,
the
the
book
moms
with
wrote
Ruben,
2 books
but
about
the
her 2 kids.
Are amazing.
Amazing,
You're
absolutely.
an author as well, lady.
I'm an
Show your
author,
book.
yep.
That's right.
You
hire
can
me.
always find a flush in there. So it is little peeks of experiences that you have in the restroom and how they relate to possibly starting your own business. So that's one thing. I can't wait for you to introduce your guest because I'm a thrift store junkie.
Okay, so-
And so we'll do that. And then we also have a line of bags that are empowerment bags. A little bit on a back burner right now as we're working on another big project. So but Geri knows about it, and we can share with you when the timing is right.
So before I introduce her, my bestie is sitting in the audience. Elizabeth, yell hi. Hi. Okay. So Elizabeth introduced me to her. Okay, and you'll find out why. Okay, and she's amazing. And the reason I called Ava immediately is because she really is a thrift store junkie. Like, she's addicted. I'm not kidding you guys. Okay,
I will-
she needs help.
I'll tell you the story about that when we get going because I have some great finds that I brought with me, and then I have some things for you for your shop. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but she needs help. I'm just saying. All right.
I don't
Anyway.
need help.
All right, so listen.
Well, I need lots of help, but I don't really need help.
So anyway, I called her, and I also introduced them, and she's also going to be interviewing her on WBNN.
Yep.
So now, without further ado, I don't even know what that really means, without further ado, right?
Without talking
I
more.
know, but I'm just saying. Like, who came up with that saying, right? Anyway, all right, without talking more, all right, our star guest, TRACEY Long. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you. I want to thank you. All right, I want to thank you
go.
for having me here. And I can't help you with the thrift store addiction because I'm
You'll
going to
fuel the
invite
fire,
you out.
exactly.
Come spend your money,
Yeah.
please, because the store is it funds the ministry that I have.
I want to
So-
pull this just a little
Okay.
more. There you go.
So, yeah, the store funds the ministry that I have. So we need people. It's True Light Thrift. It's in Pendle, Pennsylvania. We're on Facebook. You can find us on Google. But come out and support the ministry.
What's
And
the name of the shop again?
it's True Light Thrift.
Oh, True Light. Yeah,
True
you
Light
said that
Thrift,
before.
and
It's
it-
only 23 minutes away from Trenton area.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's not far from here. It's right in the Lower Bucks County area. The address is 133 Bellevue Ave, Pendle, PA 19047. So come out and help us help the women that we help. I have a ministry that's called True Light Ministries, and what we do is provide safe havens for women to heal and recover from addiction, abuse, and sexual exploitation.
Okay, so before we have our questions, because I'm sure we both have a lot of questions, you're also an author.
I am.
Show
I
your
have-
books. Tell us about your 2 books.
So I have True Esteem. It's where we find our true worth and value. I am a minister and I'm a Christian writer. And for me, I spent a lifetime working on my self-esteem, and I was an empty shell of a woman. So for me, when I, God found me because I wasn't looking for him. He found me, and, he flipped the script. And I have Breaking the Silence. It's a woman's call to preach, teach, and lead. I believe women can preach. I believe they can teach, and I believe they can lead. And it's biblical. This is all scripture. It's all biblical. It goes, I don't want to say goes against, but it breaks down those scriptures that people use to stop women from preaching and pastoring and leading. And it educates people on what they really mean. When we can take any scripture out of the Bible and not use it in correct context. So that's what I do. I've studied this for years. The first time I was told I couldn't do something as a woman, just because I was a woman, been studying it for years. So
There's
trying to-
2 words that answer that question, right?
what's
Watch me.
But that's, and that's what happened. When I was told, no, you can't, it was like, yeah, okay, watch me.
I love it.
And I proved them wrong.
So, all right. I got to visit your place yesterday.
I know that's,
And I won't tell the story, but we had a God moment yesterday, and that's how I got to visit her place. It's awesome. It's beautiful. It's so clean. It's so nice. I got photos of even the inside. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I have a few questions for you, and then I really want you to bear all. I want you to tell your story, because everything she's going to share, guys, she's overcome, and look what she does now with it. She helps other women and children. And what most people probably don't realize about my shows, you may, is that I will never, ever have someone who didn't overcome as a guest. They've had to have overcome, so that people out there dealing with that struggle can see it and know it's possible to overcome it. So what we're going to do is I want to ask you a question first.
Wait, before you ask your question, speaking
Go
of
ahead.
God, I have God gifts for you. So when you were telling the God stories earlier, so this is a hand of God.
Aw,
oh, look at
And one's
that.
for Jerry. And they actually are the little charms that go on the outside of my bags, and we attach them to the zipper. So I brought you each a little
thank
charm.
you,
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy. So
I
since you
will.
were talking God, I thought I'd do that now.
Adorable. So now I'm going to ask her a question, and then I'll let you ask her a question, and then I'm going to have you tell your story.
Okay.
All right? So the question that I have is, so if the money from the thrift store goes to the ministry,
Yes.
how do you support yourself? What do you do?
So I still don't get a salary from the ministry. Right now, I get survivor's benefits.
Okay.
My husband committed suicide probably a few months after I opened up my safe haven, first safe haven. So that is what I've been surviving on. The purpose of the thrift store is to pay employees, to pay salaries, to open more houses. I'm
Where-
not there yet.
You're not there. Do you have any house at all at this point for them?
Yes.
Okay, where is that?
Yes, that's in Levittown.
Okay, and how big is that house?
It holds 8 women.
And is it filled
That's
to
good size.
capacity?
It is.
I'm sure.
We have a waiting list.
Yes. Are there children there as well?
Not there.
Okay.
So the purpose of this first thrift store, which I'm going to have to open a second one because 6 months after we opened, we outgrew.
Okay.
We outgrew it, so we have to open a second one. And that's the plan with True Light, is to open a thrift store for each new house. because that thrift store that I have does fund
Okay.
the house that's open now.
Okay.
With the future of True Light, we want to open up safe havens for pregnant women.
Okay.
And then those women need houses that they can transition into, right?
Okay.
I don't want them to come in, have their baby, and then have to leave 3 to 6 months later because their baby's a certain age, because that's how it usually works. The women that I work with, right, we're talking about the abused, the homeless, the sex trafficking, domestic violence, right? They're going to have their baby and still have nowhere to go. So I have to have homes that they can transition into, because we disciple these women. It's not just come in and live. Like
Right.
we work with them to heal, right? They have to heal and recover from the trauma
Right.
that they've been through. And we want them to become productive members of society. So, and the purpose of the store is also to help them with social skills, with job skills. Some of the women that I work with don't even know how to do laundry. So we have to teach life skills, how to cook, how to clean. You know, so we're going to have to open another thrift store that can fund we need at least 2 or 3 homes.
One of the kids that you met, Stanley Adams, Karen's son. Hi guys. Stanley goes to a place called Interactive Kids, and they teach them like how to keep a checkbook, how to do laundry, how to make breakfast, and so that it's run by a state program, so that might be something you could look into.
So for me,
Talk a little more, baby.
for me, when it comes to recovery from addiction, I'm abstinent based. And there's a lot of government funding that I can't take, because then it's control.
I kind of agree with you.
So I won't take, because I've fought with counties about getting licensed in the county I am in, because I won't take MAT. That's, the MAT is the methadone, Suboxone,
Right.
and now it's medical marijuana if they have a medical card, which is very easy to get. So I'm abstinent based, and I'm going to put this out there, and this could be controversial
there.
if it's okay.
Do it.
We were told in the beginning we can't discriminate. So with the way things are going now with that identity thing, there are a lot of homes that are allowing men who identify as a woman in a woman's home.
No, I don't agree with
and
that.
I don't either.
No.
And these women are traumatized.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree
We're
too.
dealing with rape,
That's right.
exploitation, violence,
No.
right? And so I've had phone calls from girls who had a roommate that was a man.
Yeah.
And it just brings up so much more trauma.
That's
so
right.
there's
Yeah.
no healing with that.
No.
So, and I'm under a loophole because of the trauma survivors that I work with, but I just refuse to let the government control how I
Right.
run my program.
So you'll have a question right after I say something.
Okay.
I was told by City of Angels when my book came out in 2016
Right.
that I could not speak at any of their meetings because they don't agree with me. Because I will never, ever allow them to tell me or the government that I am always an addict. I was born an addict. No, I wasn't. And that it's a disease. No, it is not. Through God, anything can be cured. And they don't want to hear it. So they're keeping, AA and NA are keeping you guys addicted. Okay? They're letting you stand up there and say, hi, I'm Geri, I'm an addict, and I'm powerless over my addiction. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been 34 years clean. Really? I'm an addict? No, I'm not. All right? You're not born with a disease, unless, God forbid, the mother was pregnant and was using heroin. I don't mean that. Okay? When you're using drugs, you have a dis-ease of the brain cells. 1 year after you're clean and sober, your brain cells are healed. So I don't want to hear it. But so I agree with you as far as like what you were just saying about being dictated.
Well, it's the renewing of the mind
That's right.
and the neuroplasticity of the brain.
That's right.
And the dendrites that regrow, like our brains can regrow
There
to
you
a
go.
better place.
We learned at a young age that if you're a smoker and you stop smoking, 24 hours later, your lungs start repairing themselves.
Yes.
So it's like your body is made
Yes.
to heal.
Yes.
So I mean, there are things we have to work on, but
Right.
your body's generally made to heal from things.
So Ava, you ask her a question, then
Yeah.
we're going to have you tell your story.
Okay.
So the women that you work with, do they work in the store, or do you have them work in the store?
Yes, eventually they do volunteer. It depends, each woman is different. We do have a general program that they all have to follow. We're very strict, but they do a lot of work on themselves. A lot of, I believe, in inner healing.
Yep.
Getting to the root of the problem. You take drugs and alcohol away, and what are you left with? I always say I'm left with me, myself, and more. Right?
I love that.
So we, so we have to get to the root of the problem, and I believe, you hear a lot of things about gateway, and I really believe trauma is a gateway, right? And they have to heal from that trauma, and they have to recover from everything that life has thrown at them.
There's a place called Enlightened Solutions. I don't know if you heard of them. They're pretty big. Jen Hansen runs it. And they have organic little cafes that are associated with their program, and they run them through the people that come through the program. So everybody that goes through their program gets to work in an environment like that.
That's
So
it.
that's why I was asking. It's pretty
And
cool.
here I want to share real quick too. So I have a house manager, and I have a girl that runs the store, and they're both they have both been through my program. They came in as clients, right, at the end of their rope, at the end of their life, really hopeless, in despair, addicted, homeless, ready to kill themselves. And they came in, and here they are now. One is the house manager. She's also been brought on board, the president of the board of directors. She's been with me 8 years now. And another girl, I called her because I heard she was going to put herself into a mental institution because she was ready to kill herself. And I called her, and I told her, just come home, because she had been in my program but left. And I said, just come home. And here she is running the store.
Wow.
That's beautiful. So now we want to hear your story. We want to hear the trauma you've been through, because TRACEY, listen, you could cry, okay? You're going to help someone out there who needs to hear this. Okay. So look into the camera and tell your story.
And I can get through it without crying, and I think that's why I'm so big on healing.
Okay.
Because when you heal from trauma, you can openly talk about it
That's
without
right.
it affecting you anymore.
That's right.
Right? So for me, it started when I was a little girl, and I was the oldest of 4 girls born to an alcoholic father who wanted boys. So right from the beginning, I was told I was worthless because I was a girl. And we were talking about labels, and that worthless label followed me most of my life. At 12, my mom left my dad, and it was kind of like he was so strict. And the abuse that I endured, like I was locked in the basement for days at a time with no lights on, no food, just because he couldn't stand to look at me anymore.
Wait, was your mom there? She knew this was happening?
So some of the memories are there. I think what happened, my mom was put away.
Okay.
Quite a few times, and I didn't learn until later it was because she was addicted to those Mother's Little Helpers, Valium and the Black Beauties and everything they gave women back then to just cope. And so she was put away, and I remember certain memories of I don't remember her being there.
Gotcha.
So I'm assuming that it was because when she was put
Yes.
away is when he didn't want to have to deal with 4 kids, 4 girls no less, and he locked me in the basement.
Wow.
So, and physical abuse I endured, bruises, welts from, as far back as I can remember.
Where were the other siblings?
So they were there, and I got the brunt of the abuse. He was physical with all of them. He beat them all, and none of them felt like he wanted them. We all grew up knowing that we had a father that didn't want us. And my
Sure.
mom was, I think, just trying to survive, just trying to survive. And but she left him when I was 12.
Did she take you with her?
She did. She took all of us with her.
Okay.
And then I went from a life of that was really strict to a life with no discipline.
Okay.
And I ran with that.
Did he sexually abuse you guys as well?
So I have one sister that says he did.
Okay.
I have no memories of it. There are things that have happened that I got flashbacks of that where I stopped and thought, you know what,
Yeah.
it's possibility.
Yeah.
those memories have not come back. The flashbacks have not come back
Okay.
for that, and I'm okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not something I
No,
need.
yeah.
I need. Yeah.
Of course.
I need to know. Some people, those memories
Okay.
come back. Thanking God that they didn't.
Okay.
Okay. I think what I went through was enough, and to add something
No,
like
yeah,
that,
Trace.
yeah. So, but when my mom left my dad, there was no discipline,
And where did you live with your mom?
and so we moved to Trevose, in Trevose, Pennsylvania. and we
Was it
lived-
an apartment?
It was an
Okay.
apartment.
Okay,
Yeah.
continue.
And we moved in. She got another boyfriend and moved in with him, and that didn't work out. But it was, all bets were off. The crowd that I started hanging out with, I started smoking cigarettes at 12 years old. Honestly, I think I started smoking cigarettes before we even left my dad. And I started smoking pot at 12. I think the first time I drank was at 13, and I was doing heroin by 17, and everything in between. But at 16 years old, I got kicked out of the house.
How did you get your money for all this?
So,
Here we go.
at 16, I got kicked out of the house, and I dropped out of school. And I was exploited in ways no 16-year-old should be exploited.
Yep.
And there was an older gentleman that was, he owned a store that one of my friends worked at, and he's like, I can get you girls this really good paying job, and you'll make a lot of money. But I was homeless, so I'm like, I'm open for anything.
When you say homeless, where were you living?
I was just sleeping on people's couches,
Okay, go
friends'
ahead.
couches for as long as I could.
Go ahead.
And that's at 16. And then what happened is we went into Center City, and this is back in the 80s. So you could pay $5 at the check cashing place for a fake ID.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 55.
Okay, so go ahead,
So this,
continue.
this is in the 80s.
Yeah,
Going way back. And so I got the fake ID, and we went to a bar in New Jersey, and I auditioned and started stripping.
Okay.
So, and I made good money. And at
Yep.
16 years old, I had my own apartment, and my friends over all the time. And it was a party scene. The sex, the drugs, the
Rock and roll.
the rock and roll, right? Men, money. That's the life that raised me.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't have anybody.
Did you ever talk to your mom through all that?
Not really.
So your mom, I know she had mental illness as well because she did.
Yeah,
Okay,
she
you
did.
can't say she didn't.
Right.
But she didn't. She had. Okay, continue. Okay,
Yeah,
continue.
she did.
Yeah.
And God love her. I just lost my mom.
Okay.
September.
You reconnected later on.
So
Sorry to hear that.
We did
Sorry to hear that.
reconnect. Yes. we
Today would have
did.
been my mom's 95th birthday.
Okay.
We lost her in 2009.
Okay.
But today was her birthday.
Okay.
So
And
continue.
then, but at the end
So
of her life,
16
at
now?
16, I'm stripping, dancing. And
Okay.
I'm just, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, and going bar to bar to bar. And that's the life that raised me. So it was the drugs, it was the alcohol, it was constant party scene, constant seeking attention. It's an attention
Yeah,
seeker. You
of
hear about
course.
that all the time. And that is the life that raised me until
So,
I was.
so what was your aha moment? How did you get
Well,
out
wait,
of that?
don't answer that yet. I want to
That's-
still hear.
The aha moment
Yeah.
didn't come for
Yeah,
years.
so don't say that yet because
Okay.
I want them to hear.
It was
your
years.
journey.
And then at I think I was 21, I met my children's father and had my first child. And it was still the drugs, the alcohol. My kid's dad was an alcoholic.
He knew you were stripping,
Yeah.
and that was okay with him, right?
Well, no, and that's
Oh,
why I
okay,
stopped.
continue.
Yeah,
All right.
and that's why I stopped.
Okay.
And then I was pregnant. So, and a month after we met, I get pregnant. And it's like, oh, okay, we're going to live together and raise babies and live happily ever after. And that's just the delusion.
Yep.
Right? It's a delusion. Everything sounds good. It sounded good in theory. But, him and my dad were two peas in a pod. He was an alcoholic and he was abusive. And I had 2 more children. And it was a whirlwind of a relationship. It was destructive. It was chaotic.
Did he abuse the children?
So, me more so. Were there times of abuse to the kids? Yes. Now I really kind of want to watch what I say.
Okay, yes.
With, my
No,
kid,
no, no,
my
yes,
kids
of course.
are going to watch
No,
this.
yes, of course.
But it was Probably everything you could think or imagine that it was. It was
Okay.
not good,
Okay.
you know, and it was on both sides. And it took me a long time actually to own up to my part,
Okay.
right? And I was just as abusive, just as
Okay.
dishonest as he was.
Okay.
You know, I was a fighter.
Okay.
So my life was filled with the, you know, not just the drugs and alcohol, but the fighting, the violence. I had
Okay.
the attitude, and I was brought up with, you know, I don't need anybody for anything. I got this. I can do this, you know, and I did whatever I had to do to get things to happen. And it always backfired in my face, you know.
Every step leads you to where you are.
It has.
You know.
It has. And there's a lesson in everything. There's a lesson. I'm thankful for the moment, the aha moment, but that didn't come for a long time. And I think, you know, my first child was in 1990, actually 1990.
Okay.
And then 94, I had my, no, 93, 93, I had my second child, and 94, I had my third child. So I
Okay.
have two boys and a daughter, and they were brought up in that
Chaos.
chaos and yeah. And I wasn't taught right, and I didn't teach them right, and me and their father had no business having kids. You know, his life was just as bad as mine, with the alcohol and the family and the dysfunction, and we're you know, trying to bring two dysfunctional people together, you know, to create this family, and it did not work. It did not work, but it came to, and you know, the chaos of that lasted good 15 years.
You were with him for 15 years?
On and off. I did leave him multiple times, and
Okay.
anybody that is in any kind of abusive relationship knows and understands, you know, one, you can't just leave, and two, you're so psychologically messed up, so psychologically trapped. You really feel like there is no hope, and you know, when they say they're sorry, you believe for that fraction that things will change. You know, you hold on to the hope that they will change, and they don't. You know, they don't. And that's, you know, why, that's one of the reasons why I'm so big on the trauma and working with women that are
Right.
caught up in domestic violence, because it's a hard place to get out of. A lot of people will say, well, why didn't you just leave? Well, I just left a few times throughout those years, and it's hard because it's psychological.
So now, let's take it from, okay, so you were with him for 15 years, you said?
Yes.
And when did your children leave the house?
So I left
Oh, okay.
with the kids. It was, I remember, I think the fear of staying outweighed
Okay.
the fear of the fear of staying finally outweighed the fear of leaving,
Okay.
because there's such a fear
Yeah.
of trying to break away and get away. You
Yeah.
don't know what they're going to do if you do. But the fear of staying that moment, because of a conversation that he had with my mom called me and said some things, and I knew I had to go. I knew it was going to be bad, so I knew I had to go, and I got 3 brown paper bags, packed enough stuff for my 3 kids, put it in the station wagon, and I left. And I had every intention of, you know, getting a job, getting an apartment, and taking care of my babies, right? And I couldn't find the job that would pay enough money to.
Where
put a
did you go when you left? Initially left?
I went to a friend's house.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and here it's just that whole. It was a male friend, and you know, I've been trained to take a look at your part in everything, right? And it was a male friend, and it was supposed to be platonic, and that's that being naive and
Yep.
trusting,
Of course.
right? And then when I got there, it turned and said, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I'm like, no, that's, you know. So then he's like, well, you got to go. So if you don't do this, you have to go. And here I am caught up in that again. And I did one of the hardest things I ever had to do, and that was to give my kids up and give them to their dad until I can get my life together.
Was his life together at that point when you gave them to his?
No. No. But I had nowhere to live. I was homeless again.
And he had a place to live.
I think he was living with his dad at that time.
Okay. Okay, Trace.
Yep. And I think, back then we were moving every 6 months,
Okay.
right? The bills weren't getting paid, so it was
No.
just chaos.
So you gave them back to Dad.
I gave them back to him until I could get it together and get that place and the job. And then he ended up turning around and taking me to court and got custody
Okay.
of the kids
Okay. How long ago was that?
in the 90s.
Okay,
That
continue.
that was in the 90s.
Okay.
And what I did was I did get a job. I did get the apartment, and it was a small apartment. It wasn't big enough to have all the kids or to be able to get custody of them again. But I did have partial custody, and I had them, every other weekend,
Okay.
all that. And I was doing good. And I think for me, in my life, when things are going good and I have the job and I'm making money, my esteem would go up, right? And my sense of worth and my sense of value would go up. And I put myself back through school. I was going to school for massage therapy, and I graduated, and I started my own business, and things are going really good. And I'm in gyms and doctors' offices. I was mobile business. I was going to people's homes and doing massage. I quit the job that I was in. I was doing really good. And then 2000, I was in a car accident and broke my back and lost everything again. And it's not the first time that I lost everything. And by then it was probably the third or fourth time that I lost everything. And any sense of dignity, any sense of worth, any sense of value just went with everything I lost. I was in a wheelchair for a while, and I was told I'd probably never walk again, and here I am. But with that came a really bad addiction,
Pain pills.
pain pills. And I was prescribed by one doctor 60 pain pills a day.
So wait, can we talk about that for 30
Yep.
seconds?
Yep.
Okay, so this doctor, is he still in practice?
I believe so. He might be retired now, but I know.
Okay, and he told you had to take 60 pills a day.
Oh, yeah. He allowed me to.
Right.
It didn't start off with that much, but every time I went back and said, this isn't working, he's like, okay, we'll take more. And then it's all right, take 2 more for breakthrough pain. And it ended up being 60 pain pills a day, not to mention all the other stuff that he was giving me to sleep, the muscle relaxers.
Okay, we'll talk about this off air because I have a
Yeah.
lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. So it was 60 pain pills a day. And for somebody like me,
Right.
I thought I hit the jackpot, right? I'm like, yeah, I don't have to leave my house. And I very rarely did.
Okay.
And with that it was about an 8-year addiction with that. And I think with all those pills, drinking, using drugs, you get hit with that initial, right? I didn't get that anymore. So not only was I doing 60 pain pills a day, I was drinking. I was telling a story to a friend of mine the other day. I was like, I had 2 boxes of wine in my trunk at all times. And at a red light, I would get out, run to the trunk, and squeeze the wine on top of the pain pills. And it's only the grace of God I didn't get a DUI. I've been pulled over multiple times, but they could never prove it. And it's only the grace of God my kids are still alive, because I drove with my kids in the car. I hit trees, houses, ended up on people's front lawns. Like, it was bad, but I didn't see it. And my kid's father, he would tell me, like, you're not taking the kids, you're not driving with the kids. And I'm like, oh, you're just being you. And no, he wasn't being him. He was trying to keep those kids safe.
Yeah.
And everybody knew it but me.
Okay.
And then throughout that addiction, somebody asked me what I was taking for the pain. And I told them, and she said, do you know how much money you can make? And I didn't know. And then when I found out, I started selling them.
Uh-huh.
So, and I started making good money, and I got caught. And that's, I got caught, and I ended up going to state prison. And that is, my aha moment was actually in jail.
What year was that?
I got arrested in 2008.
Okay, you're in prison now. How long?
I'm in prison. I was in county for 2.5 months and ended up going upstate for a couple years.
Talk about prison for a minute,
So-
please.
I don't recommend it. right? But it saved my life. I think I'm going to back up a
Yep,
little
back
bit.
up.
Right before I got locked
Yep.
up, I almost died.
Okay.
So my mom and my daughter, nobody heard from me for a few days, and as messed up as I was, I would still contact my daughter or text my mom, say I'm okay, so they knew I was alive. And they didn't hear from me for 3 days, so they showed up at my apartment, and I was dying. Like I was catatonic. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. You hear that expression, wet brain? And that's what it was. I had no thought. I know I was looking at my mom and my daughter, but there was not a word or a thought. I didn't know what I was looking at. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't feed myself, nothing. And I was just seizing. And they called the ambulance and they took me to the hospital. And, they called the social workers. They told my mom I wasn't going to make it. I was dying. My body was shutting down. It couldn't handle all those years of abuse.
At that time, I have a question about your
Yeah.
mom. Is she clean and sober at that
Yes.
time? Okay,
Yes,
continue.
Yes. So they took me to the hospital, and lo and behold, the hospital saved my life. And I was mad. I was so mad that they saved my life.
I get it.
Because every day that I woke up breathing, I cursed God because I just wanted to die.
I get it. Go ahead.
You understand that?
Yes.
I just wanted to die. I didn't care about dying in addiction. I was there. So they saved my life, and I got mad, and they wouldn't give me what I wanted. So I signed myself out, and I went home, and I tripled up. So it was either if I didn't die last time, let me die now. Let me die now. But I remember that moment, and I had gone to church, before that. And I remember going to church and hearing the worship music, and then I would nod out in the pew when the pastor started praying. But I got there. But after that, I went home, tripled up, and ended up in fetal position on my living room floor, and just crying out to this God I didn't even know to take me. And I wanted to die. Just take me, Lord. Why don't you just take me? And
He had
and
a
I tell
different plan for you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time to be specific when you pray, because he took me, but he took me to state prison.
Okay, I love that. Go ahead,
Right?
continue.
He took me to state prison, and because he had so much more in store for me that I didn't know.
That's right.
Right? I tell people all the time, find purpose in your pain, because there is purpose in our pain. Right? We have to heal, we have to grow, and we have to start doing the right thing. And it's funny because I didn't start doing the right thing in life until I was in state prison. Right? But I remember being in county, and I remember I'm on a lot of medication, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, and they put me in a jail cell with nothing. And the withdrawal was horrible. And I ended up, I was homicidal, I was suicidal, freaking out. So they ended up putting me in the insane asylum in the county jail. And that is not something I recommend either. It's right. I was there. They usually only put you in for a couple days. They put you in. They give you this turtle suit. So if you ever hear me say I got turtle suited, that's what it was. It's not quite a straitjacket, but it's a heavy suit. You have no toilet paper, no pens, no pencils, no books, no pillow, no sheets. It's like this crib mattress on metal, and they put you in that cell, and the lights are on for 24
What do you mean, no
hours.
toilet paper?
No toilet paper. If I needed it, I'd have to ask for it.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay.
So if you need anything, but that's all
Oh, I
they
got
would
what
give
you're
you,
saying,
right? So,
okay.
but they don't even give you that,
Okay.
because you are suicidal.
Yes, yes.
Right. And you're under watch 24/7.
Okay.
And I remember sitting in that cell and sitting on the floor, and I was just rocking, trying to think how I was going to get through this. How am I going to get out of this? Like, I can't do this, and rocking. And I was pulling the hairs out, right? My eyelashes were gone. My eyebrows were gone. I started plucking the hairs in my head and just rocking and crying. And I remember hearing and those sounds still stay with me sometimes, but hearing the sounds of the other girls that were in the insane asylum with me, and the catcalls, and they banging their head up against the concrete block because there's no other way out, right? But that. And I remember sitting there crying, pulling my hair, trying to figure out how am I possibly going to get out of this? Because I want to kill myself. Like, I can't make it through this. In state prison, I can't do state prison, right? So how am I going to get out of this? And when you powerless, right? Because there was really nothing I can do. But then I had this thought to just get up and start bashing my head up against that concrete wall. And I went to get up to do that, and we had metal doors. They weren't, the bars. We had metal doors where we were. And when I went to get up and put my head up, the door in front of me was there. And somebody before me had scratched out a message with their nail in that door. So when I looked up, what I saw was, "My God will get me out of this."
Oh my gosh.
And I'm telling you, this, and I say the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
right? Just this feeling that
I
came
just got
over me,
chills.
this
Yeah, me too.
overwhelming sense of peace. For the first time in my life, sitting in that jail cell, waiting, getting ready to bash my head up against that concrete wall. It was that moment there that God flipped the script, right? That I knew that I was going to be okay, and I knew that my God was going to get me out of this. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew. And I was on the floor for a little bit longer, just crying everything out that, at that time I didn't even know what taking a look at yourself was, or a men's was, or anything like that, right? But I just cried everything out of me, everything that's been done to me, everything that I did to other people, because I was not a good mom. That the life that I lived, not being raised right, I had no clue, no idea
right.
how to be a mom.
Right.
Right? But just cried all that out. And in between that crying, I kept saying, "My God's going to get me out of this." And I would point to the door, thinking the door would open up, when I said that. And I'm like, it doesn't really work that way with God, right? But when I was just spent, and I had nothing left in me, not a tear, not a confession, not nothing. I got up off the floor, and you got to think, I spent 5 days on that floor. 5 days. It took a couple days for me to cry everything out and get everything out. And I finally got out, just spent, and went to lay down to sleep, and the door opened. So I was like, okay, here we go. But that's that aha moment. That's when I really encountered.
And how old were you at that moment?
I was 38 years old.
Okay, so now
Wow.
continue.
So it was, it was in prison that I decided to listen, right? To surrender, to do what I'm told to do, to start taking suggestions, to listen to the clear-cut directions people were trying to give me on how to live my life, because I didn't know how to live the right way. I remember being, in yard and seeing girls, and I didn't start out with all the right behaviors. I knew how to hustle on the streets.
Of
I knew how
course.
to hustle in there, but there came a point in time where I would see girls leave and come back in two weeks later, and I'm like, why? Like, why are you coming back? And they would tell me, "Tracy, dump it all here." Like the programs they make you take, what they try to teach you, dump everything here, get it all out here, dump it all here, and leave it here. So I took their suggestions, and I did. I mean, I had to do some intense therapy, counseling. I did anger management, violence prevention. I had to do this therapeutic community where we lived and breathed recovery, and I was in a unit that was separated from the general population upstate, and it was 65 women with half walls. So we didn't even have the cell. So it's an open unit with 65 women. And I remember, I talk about prayer, be specific when you pray, because right before I had almost died, and right before I went to the hospital, and before I went to prison, I remember praying for patience. Because I was really taking everything out on my kids. And the thing with taking it out on my kids, there was so much inside of me, so much turmoil, so much hate, so much brokenness inside that I would act out. and I was taking it out on my kids because I didn't want to be that mom, right? I was a mom. I would sit down with my kids when I had them and be like, all right, we're all going to sit at the dining room table and have dinner together, have conversation, and act like we like each other for 10 minutes. And I'm that mom picking my face up out of my food. And my oldest son, I remember he used to sit straight across from me, and I would pick my face up out of my food, and he would just look at me with disgust. You know, such disgust. And
How are the kids now?
Oh, he's on my board of directors.
Nice.
He's my CFO. Like, he trusts me.
So they all came through it
oh
okay
yeah,
as well.
Yeah. And you know, getting out, I made amends, and I believe part of our amends, we should have the living amends, which we so you take the word amend, right? Now I can go to somebody all day long and be like, you know what, I was wrong, I did this, what can I do to make it right? And then they tell you what you could do to make it right. You need to do it. But you take the word amend, you have the word mend in it. And mend means to modify or change, right? When we're mending something, we have to modify it, we have to change. So we can't keep, you know, going back and forth saying, I'm sorry, and what can I do to make it right? Like, you need to change.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Let me find a poem in here. I
Okay.
gotta read it. It's called Change Your Choice.
Okay.
Hold on.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I
like
wasn't
that one.
planning on it because look, I don't have it marked.
Mhm.
Hold on, guys.
And not, you know, while she's looking, not many people can come through what you've come through. Not even the kids. I mean, sometimes you hear these stories, so you are the change that's meant to be, because not everybody could come through.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's a hard road to.
I'm sure.
to come back from.
I want to. After I read this, I want to hear about prison, what it was
Okay.
like. Okay. My mother's entire family, they were all ended up in prison at some point, and
Wonder if she met Tootsie there. Hi-
Okay.
Hi, Tootsie.
so I wrote this poem. It's in my book. It's called Change Your Choice. I had a life-changing moment that I knew had to be, and the only way to change things was to first start with me. So I looked in the mirror and woke up one day and thought to myself I needed to pray. So I asked God to change me, to help me stay strong, to clean up my mess, to right what's been wrong. I cleaned up my diet, I cleaned up my room, I cleaned up all habits with this dirty broom. I kept going forward and never looked back. I refused to derail, stayed on the right track. I realized my worth and all that did matter through my selfish behavior, the lives I had shattered. I finally decided at 30 years old to stop abusing my body, my mind, heart, and soul. My life-changing choice that I had once made over 34 years now, guys, my debt has been paid. So you read all my thoughts on how to stay clean. It's all or nothing, my friend. There's no in between. To live or to die is a choice you must make. Your life is not worthless, and you're not a mistake. One day at a time is a slogan you've heard. It works if you work it while applying His word. For you to get healthy, for your mind not to fail, escaping reality will keep you in jail. With addictive behavior, sex, drugs, food, or money, substituting addictions, now isn't that funny? So I'm not an addict. This too shall pass. I'm not an addict. I'm just an ass.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's a great
So-
one.
I love that. So prison for me, and I know God had me in there because I didn't have any trouble.
Oh,
Um,
but what was it? What was it like? So people know the trouble that does go on.
So it's a scary place. You see everything you see on TV. You see there.
Okay.
You know, I don't watch the jailhouse shows
Okay,
because I lived it.
I don't love it.
Right? I lived it. I survived it. You know, but that is when God flipped the script. So it was in there that you know, I knew I had to change. It was in there, like the therapeutic community program. I ended up becoming a peer specialist for, and it was in there that I learned that I'm actually good working with people.
Okay.
And I had one of the highest paid jobs in the prison. I was making 52 cents an hour. Right?
Oh,
So when I
jeez.
hear people complaining about how much they make, I'm like, all right, I was making 52 cents an hour, and I could get blueberry donuts and coffee, and I was happy.
And that was the highest paid.
And right, and I was happy. But it was there that, you know, I learned that I was actually good with working with women, and I did, and I survived it, and I got out, and you know, I was there for 2 years, but I was on parole for 7 years after that. So 9 years of my life was all that. God knew what I needed.
That's right.
a 30-day rehab, a 5 or 7 day detox wouldn't have done it. I needed to be away from people, places, and things for 2 years.
That's right.
Right, from the drugs and the alcohol for 2 years, and I needed to be in a place where my mind could start being renewed.
Yeah.
Right, so it's just, it's funny, but it was in prison that
Okay.
that
Wow.
my script was flipped, and I decided to make the changes needed to be made. And I got out, and I'm a girl from Bucks County. I didn't know anything about AA until then. I had a pen pal while I was in prison and put money on my books. And, I had no visitors. I never got letters, no phone calls. Nobody put money in my books. I had 3 hots and a cot. That was it. And then I got the pen pal, and finally I had somebody to write back and forth, put money on my book so I could make phone calls, and talk to somebody outside of prison. But that's when I learned about AA. And, I found out that I was getting paroled. I got my green sheet, and usually people are excited when they get their green sheet. But for me, I had nowhere to go.
And you were scared.
And
Yeah.
I was scared. I had nowhere to go. Nobody was going to let me come out and move in with them.
At that point, was your mom clean and sober?
Yeah.
And she wouldn't have let you come home,
No.
even though you were just in jail for 2 years? Okay, continue.
Yeah. And so this pen pal started talking to me about recovery houses. It's like, well, I can get you in a recovery house in Philadelphia. I'm like, okay. And we worked it all out. He worked hard, and his friend worked hard to get me out. And I got put in a recovery house, and this recovery house was on Frankfurt Ave. So I didn't know anything about Frankfurt and Kensington,
Okay.
right? But my recovery was in Frankfurt and Kensington. And I was at a place with, this organization. I knew I was being called to help people. I knew I was being called to, have a recovery house or something that helps women. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know where it was going to be. I started the process. I created True Light in 2015. And I worked on the 501c3 because we are a 501c3 nonprofit. I worked on the program. I'm a big believer in planning. So anything I've ever started, I've planned. And I lost my train of thought. So, I'm a big believer in planning. So I had the whole program in place before I even opened the door.
You were saying how you didn't have any place to go and you were worried, and now you're telling about this part. So
Yeah.
you're a planner. Okay.
Yeah. So, and like I was saying, 10 years of my life, recovery was in Frankfurt and Kensington. And, I was hoping to get out of that area. It's not an easy area. And I got to a place where I didn't think God was going to bring me out of Philadelphia. So I started looking at houses in that area. And then, it always seems like for me with God, as soon as I get to that place of surrender and I'm like, okay, well, this is where you want me. And if this is all it's going to be, then I'm okay with it. And he's usually like, yeah, no, we're going to
Right.
go over here, But it's in that moment of complete surrender, like, whatever you want from me, wherever you want, I'm going to do it. And he, I don't want to say changes his mind, but
Oh,
know,
no, he
he's
already-
like- he already
Yeah, that
knows.
was
He
all
already
right.
knows. He didn't change his mind. He knew that had to happen
Right.
before we get you to there and then there.
Right. So I ended up in Levittown,
Okay.
Pennsylvania, and I opened the first safe haven in Levittown in 2017. And like I said earlier, a few months after I opened that, my husband committed suicide. And I'm going to tell you how good my God is right now is because when I was looking at everything in black and white, I was losing everything. He was the financial provider, so I could do full-time ministry. And I was looking at the bank accounts and the budgets, and I was losing everything, even my car. But I'm here to tell you, God's not interested in the facts. And we may look at things that look like it's a complete and utter.
But wait, you were with him at this point?
Yeah.
You got back together?
So no, this was my husband. So my husband was not my kid's father. I got married after I
Gotcha.
got out of prison.
Okay,
in
gotcha.
recovery.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
We met, in recovery, and he had my story, I had his story, and
Okay.
we're like,
Was there abuse there?
so not physical,
Okay, but just
know,
because of
but-
the situation.
Right,
Okay.
and I wasn't who I am now
No, right,
either.
of
Right,
course, of
yeah.
course.
So I believe you hear it said opposites attract. I
Okay.
don't believe that. I believe likes attract like. So if you want better, become better.
Okay, so now you're with
Okay.
him, you're married, he was the financial guy, blah,
So
blah,
I
blah,
could
blah.
do full-time ministry,
Now
and he
continue.
committed suicide. And after that, like, I knew I was losing everything that I worked so hard for. And I'm at this place like, here we go again, God.
Okay.
You know, but we're open 8 years later. Not a bill has been late. Everything's been paid off.
But before you jump that far,
Hmm.
so from that point he kills himself
Yeah.
to now, like, what did God do in between to make it that way for you so that you didn't have a bill late?
It's that, well, so I'm a 501c3 nonprofit, so donations
Okay, gotcha.
were coming in.
Okay,
People
cool.
were
Had
just-
you opened the thrift
had-
shop at this
No,
point?
no, I didn't
So,
open a thrift shop until 2 years ago.
Okay.
Oh,
So in
nice,
between
right.
that house and the thrift store, I had opened up a house in Kensington.
Gotcha.
God was bringing me back to Kensington.
Gotcha.
And partnered with the church to open that house. And that house, we eventually had women and children.
Gotcha.
All right. And we were open there for a couple years. We went through COVID in that house.
Okay.
National Guards coming in. We had to close that house down, bring them to the Levittown house. Like, it was a nightmare. But then the church decided they had a different vision for that house, and we had to close down. So now I'm still with the one house in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Now, and you don't have to answer it, just like, sugarcoat it. At that point, right before your husband committed suicide or afterwards, your children, were they in your life?
So my children are grown.
Yes.
They're adults. So when I first got out of prison, and me and my husband got a place, my daughter and my one son did move
Okay.
back in.
Beautiful. Okay.
And yeah,
Okay, beautiful.
yeah. And then we moved from that house.
Okay.
They,
You
went
had
on
3
with their
children?
lives. I have 3
Are
children.
they all in your life?
They're all in my life.
Beautiful,
I'm
okay.
close
Amazing.
to all of them. I have 4 grandchildren.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that are
decided-
in my life that have never seen me sober.
Okay.
I mean, never seen me sober.
It's not-
Never seen me messed up, right?
They've only seen
yeah.
you sober.
only seen you sober, yeah.
Always see me sober. And when I start, because my grandson will be 12.
Okay.
I'm starting to open up with him about
Okay.
my past, and my granddaughters too. Like, I'm starting
Okay.
to open up with them, and because of the books I wrote.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it.
So they're gonna read some things that I write, and then they're gonna have questions.
Okay.
So I've been open about the addiction, about jail, and because they look up to me.
No, right. I get
right?
it.
And I want to let them know, like, there's nothing you can do
Yeah,
that's gonna make me not love you.
yeah.
You know,
'Cause
we
I've
all,
done it
yeah,
all.
we all mess up.
Okay.
If that's the worst that you do, okay, good, because this is what I did. And they looked at me like the first time they heard it, they're like, "What?
Yeah.
You were in jail?"
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So that's nothing.
How
But
did the thrift shop come about? How
So
did that
the
idea
thrift
come
shop
about?
was always
Yeah.
a goal. It was always part of the plan. I just didn't know when. So God's timing is always funny to me, because
Right.
when he put it on my heart that it was time to open the thrift store, like, I had 2 storage units full of stuff. I knew that
How
I was
did
going
he?
to
I
open.
want to know what he said to you. Like,
So
what did you hear?
So for me, it's not that I hear anything. There's something in my gut. It's a
Okay.
knowing.
Okay.
For me, it's a knowing. And he's
Yeah.
like, it's time, and he just says thrift store, and I hear
Okay.
it, and I know it in every fiber of my being.
Okay,
right.
got it.
So it's a knowing, and this was after COVID,
Okay.
when all these stores are shutting down. My business mind could not make sense of that.
Okay.
Right. So I look up, and I'm like, no, right, and. So I'm still a rebel at heart, I guess. Like, because when he asked me to do something, it's usually bigger than anything that I think I can do. So my first reaction was always, no. No, God, because no, God, I can't. So I'm like, no, like, businesses are closing down. We just had COVID. Not everything is even open completely yet.
I want to share something with you real
Yeah.
quick. Okay, and then if you have something to share with her. So I always laugh and say, and girlfriend will tell you, God cannot whisper to me. He has to hit me over the head, okay?
With bricks.
Okay, so Back in the day, years ago, many moons, I was very young, we were able to write a poem and mail it to the publisher. Handwritten poems I've had published, and they're on my shelf.
Okay.
Okay? Things are very different now. 2016, I'm woken up to this. I open my eyes. I'm not kidding you. Not only have I seen Jesus on the wall with his arms like this at me, I'm not kidding you, but I open up my eyes and I hear, write your book. So I giggle and I go, you want me to write my book, Lord? He's like, write your book. I'm like, all right. So my dad had Alzheimer's and we used to take care of him, me and my brother, and we kept him home. And I always fast for a month every year, okay, for my health stuff, okay? And I lock myself in my house and I would fast. So my family's used to that. So I call my brother and my daughter up and I'm like, all right, listen, I'm going to fast for a month, okay? You're on dad duty. Okay, they didn't even question me,
Right.
but I didn't tell them I was writing a book. Well, I hand wrote it.
Okay.
And it was done in 3 weeks. And that, I mean, I revised it, so it
Right.
wasn't as big as
Right.
this. But I said, God wrote this book because it was done in 3 weeks. There's no way God did not write this book. Well, I'm laughing and I'm like, but I hand wrote it. What the heck do I do with it now? So I call my brother and I'm like, all right, listen, I got to tell you something. While I was fasting, I wrote my book. He goes, you wrote a book in 3 weeks. I said, yeah, but God wrote it. I said, but Ann, I hand wrote it. So he's like, you got to get somebody to get it in the computer. So I call a friend of mine whose uncle was a publisher.
Okay.
She spent the weekend. She got it together. She got it in the computer, formatted it. Okay. And she says to me, you know, Jer, we're going to send it to like 20 publishers. They may like it. They may not. You know, it could
Right.
take years. I said, oh, no. I heard Simon & Schuster. She goes, you heard Simon & Schuster. I said, I'm telling you, I heard Simon & Schuster. Only send it to them. I said, but put your contact info on it because in case they ask me tech questions, I won't be able to answer. So long story short, 5 days later, we're on a three-way with Simon & Schuster. I know the woman was a believer. And she said, we love your book and we're publishing it. No one is going to tell me God did not write that book. Okay, but I laughed and I said, okay, Lord, you want me to write my book? And I'm giggling in the middle of the night. And he's like, yep. I'm like, all right. And I hand wrote it.
Right, yeah. But that's how God works.
That's how God
right?
works.
And that's how you know it's not
Okay?
you.
No,
Now you write
at
a book
all.
in
There's
3
no
weeks,
way
3 weeks.
anyone is going to tell me. So you have something you want to comment and then you'll
So
finish.
I don't know if I said this on air before, but I know I've told you this story, a similar story. In February 2009, we lost my mom to brain cancer. Never sick a day in her life. We lost her in 4 weeks. And then 5 months later, we lost my dad. And she was his caregiver, you know. And I wanted to do something in their name. I already have a bill in the Senate office to make my mother's birthday today a day to recognize smaller charities that don't have a voice. So that's been in the Senate office for 6 years. That's another story. So I'm like, what can I do in their name? And I thought to myself, no, who needs one more charity to give to? Who needs one more thing, you know, whatever. So we fall asleep with the TV on.
Okay.
And most of the time it's the sports channel. My husband's into all kinds of sports, and I like sports, so it's no big deal. And I wake up in the middle of the night and turn it off, right? So falling asleep, right? And I met Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when I was a teenager. So I'm laying there sleeping, and all of a sudden I'm woken up out of my sleep, and there's Kareem on the screen, and he's looking at me, and he said, one person can make a difference. And I opened a foundation the next day. We're not a 501c3 because we had money for that, but we gave it to my friend's family who also passed from a brain tumor. However, we partnered up with the National Brain Tumor Society, and so I work with them whenever I can. But it was like God was telling me through Kareem to do this,
Okay.
you know, and it was funny because you said you heard the voice, and I hear signs, voices, things that'll come back at me, and I'm like, oh, that's God coming back around again, you know, and yeah, so that was my
Amazing.
story. Yeah.
So now, finish your story.
Yeah, and I was saying I lost my mom to brain cancer as well. She had her lymphoma came back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So where was I?
Okay, so now,
The thrift shop you started,
Yes.
yep.
So it's right after COVID. Everybody's closing down. I'm looking up like, God, now is not the time. Like sometimes I'll argue with them, right? I eventually say yes, Lord, and He knows
know,
I will.
I
But I
know.
got to go back and
Me
forth
too.
with them because I got to understand why
Yeah.
are we opening a store
We don't
now?
always know the why. That's it.
Right.
We don't understand.
Right, but I did. I was saving stuff over time. I had 2 storage units filled with stuff. So I was like, all right, you know
know
what?
that
I'll
feeling.
start. And here's the thing: when I had, when he told me it was time to open up the house, the first house, I had $0.
Mm.
Right. When it was time to open up the thrift store, I had $0.
Okay.
Okay. I personally have no money. Right. So I had $0. But when I know he's telling me to do something, I walk in it and I take the steps for whatever is about to happen because I know something is about to happen.
So how did you open it? With grants or whatever?
I started looking at properties, and as I'm looking at a property, I get a very large donation. One check, and it came at the same time I saw this old bank that they're in, and you know, I met with the landlord. I'm like, I'm just going with it. Now, I don't recommend starting a business with just enough money to put the security down and first and last month.
And sometimes that's all you can do.
But that is all I had. And since first month was paid, I figured, all right, I'm going to get this store set up in 30 days. We'll open. My first month, I'll start making enough money to pay rent. Well, we didn't get open in 30 days. And I don't recommend thinking that you can start a business. You know, we had to set up that whole bank in 30 days. So I'm already a month behind. You know, and my conversation with God when I finally said okay was like, you need to pay the bills. I cannot stress the house and the store and just spend every day trying to raise funds and doing events and trying to raise funds for the bills. I was like, you need to pay the bills. I'm going to do this, and I'm trusting that you're going to pay the bills. And then we're 30 days later, and I'm coming up, my first month's rent's due, and I'm like, Lord, we need to make rent on the first day. We need to make rent on opening day. We made rent on opening day, and our store has been open for 2 years.
Wow.
And I've had that money the bills have been paid, the rent, all the utilities. That store is now also paying the bills of the house. You know, so the bills have been paid.
Can I ask? I don't want to know the amount. Are they giving you a good deal, the rent where you're at?
They are.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of the situation,
And
I love that.
and that's why I looked into that because
Right.
it's not a storefront; it's an old bank. And now you saw the store.
I loved
Did
it.
you see the vault?
Yes.
Okay,
Wait,
so
yes.
so it's an old bank, and the vault's still there. The vault is
Yes.
smack dab in the middle of the store. It's got those concrete walls. That is our prayer room. So
I didn't go
Nice.
in there.
So that is our
And I
prayer
wish
room.
I did.
Yep.
She was telling
We-
me.
But
Yeah,
it's got to bring back memories from when you were crying on the floor and
On the
looking at the
floor.
door.
On the floor.
And yep.
And how
Because
about-
we looked in an old
Yeah,
bank with the
right,
vault in the
okay.
middle. Yep.
And there's so many stories. There's so much, to share. But one of the things that happened in that vault, like I went in, one thing I did looking at the stores, look at the structure, look at the floors. I didn't have to paint. I didn't have to do anything. Everything was set up. It was perfect. Just the racks up on the walls. And the floors were good. And I remember going into the vault one day, and I was eating pizza because I was tired because we're setting up and it's a lot of work, right? So I'm on this glider. The only thing that was in there was a glider, and I think that was it. So I'm eating this pizza on the glider, and I just started crying, and I'm like just overwhelmed with gratitude for what God has done and is doing in my life. And I just started crying, and I started thanking him, and I'm like, God, like I have a store. Like we have a store,
Yeah.
And I went to get up off that glider, and I looked down, and there's a cross carved in the middle of the floor that was not there. And I have pictures from before and after if I could find. There was not a cross
I
in
believe
the
it.
middle of this vault.
I believe it.
And when I saw it, remember I told you the power of the Spirit that I felt in the jail cell? I felt that same thing. And I knew, I'm like, God, I know you got me. I know you have this store. I'm not going I'm not going to doubt. I'm not going to doubt. And not, bills have been paid month after month after month. We just celebrated 2 years.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the store was, you know, for a lot of things, but to fund the ministry, the next steps for True Light is to open up safe havens for pregnant women.
Okay.
And then homes that those women and children can transition into. I think that
beautiful.
came about. So in my church, I do a class, and it's abortion recovery. And, you know, as Christians and being in the church, you know, we tell women all the time not to have an abortion, right? So my thing is there's got to be a solution. And the population of women that I work with, like, that does seem like their only option. They're homeless. They're addicted. They can't feed themselves, right? And we're going to tell them not to have an abortion. So these are my conversations with God about this. And I said, but then what? But then what? They're still homeless. They're still, and that's when he loudly, well, you have safe havens.
That's right.
And I looked up and I said, no. And I walked away from
Okay.
I walked away. I'm like, no. Like, I have a gift working with broken women, right? It is a gift. It's a passion. Give me broken women all day long. I said, I'm not gifted with kids, you know, because the kids, it's not my I love my grandkids, right? But I'm not gifted to work with kids. And he's like, but pregnant women are broken.
That's right.
Right? And I was like, oh, he always comes back with the good ones to the point where I'm like, all right, you know, you're right. So after arguing with him for a couple weeks and, you know, trying to reason with him, you know, he said it again, safe haven for pregnant women. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do this. And he said, I know, but you will.
Now
and I
hold
said,
that.
I know.
But hold that,
Yep.
because now I'm going to read a poem called Abuse. All right?
Okay.
This one was marked. While writing this poem, my heart sure will break. Abuse towards a child causes a child to ache. Not just for a moment or even a year, a lifetime of sorrow, as in forever, I fear. And that happened to you, you know? A child is helpless, should be cared for and fed, not abused or disrespected, tortured, and left for dead. The monsters that do this, death sentence should await. That poor child was stripped, now in our hands is his fate. The monsters that do this should be put to death. For the child they destroyed, let them take their last breath. They should not serve in jail. What the F, serve their time? Forever a child is damaged, but they get away with this crime. They are not human, not healthy or sane. They're suffering too. Put them out of their pain. We need to be more strict when it comes to breaking laws. When people rape and murder, the punishment should fit the cause. Child abuse is always towards boys, is also towards boys, not just females alone. Step up to the plate, people. Abuse needs to be known. How adults just ignore, I can never conceive. They too are sick, the truth, I believe. It's so much deeper than we'll ever know. Crime against kids is the lowest of low. Domestic violence is second in line. At least there are adults accepting the crime. Most is towards women, and there are some men. Regardless of sex, it happens time and again. If you are involved in being abused, it's time you are heard. Stop being confused. There is so much help if you want it to end. You do have a voice. Please speak to a friend. There is help out there. Ask now, please don't wait. Reach out to them now before it's too late. Stop being a victim, stand up for yourself. Please face your fears, store them high on a shelf. Seek out the Lord, He's not far away. If you ask Him for help, He can save you today.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
You know, I don't know if people realize the sex trafficking, because that's one of, you know, I
Yep.
work with a lot of sex trafficking survivors.
Yep. Talk a little.
It's $1 billion industry in our
She's talking
coun-
about sex
it's-
trafficking.
Yeah, sex trafficking. It's $1 billion industry in our country alone. And the women that I've worked with, I'm going to share a story. I won't put her name out there, but she was sold by her own family.
Yeah.
From the time she was in diapers until she was 12 years old, until she wasn't pretty enough or young enough.
Oh my gosh.
At 12. She wasn't young enough. And then they sold her to her husband, who locked her in a cage. you know, pay attention to what's going out there with the kids. You know, they actually train and bring awareness to schools about what to look for in their classmates being trafficked by their own family. Like, it's not in other countries. It's here. It's in our own backyard. It's even in the upscale neighborhoods where they don't think anything happens. It's there. So don't bury your head in the sand anymore. Our kids are getting abused. They're getting trafficked and going to school.
That's right.
The next day.
That's right.
So
My producer, Ruben, and we went to the borders at Yuma, Arizona 2 years ago.
okay.
And we spent 5 days with Border Patrol and the Sheriff Department with a man named Anthony Hudson, who was running for president at the time. He didn't make the ballot. And what we saw was unreal. And we were at all the borders. We were at the legal one, the illegal ones, and the most dangerous one. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people all day and night long with children that weren't even theirs. It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
And that's our country.
Yeah. And it's not just happening to kids from other countries.
No.
It's happening to the
Right.
kids in our own country.
That's right.
Too.
That's right. So, Ava.
Yeah.
What would you like to ask her or say to her?
I find your story incredible. And look at you. Beautiful, thriving,
Thank
you
you.
know, and
Thank you.
it just warms my heart that you were able to come out of that situation. You know, but not many people could do that. And that's what I was saying before, you know, it's a gift from God that you're able to pay it forward.
That's right.
Yeah. And I have to. He's done so much in me and through me and around me. And, you know, it's 16-year-old dropout. I have a master's. And I'm going to be working on my doctorate. You know, I have the organization, I have the store, I have books. I'm working on another book. Like it's.
And I got some fun stuff for you.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It
And
is.
I get overwhelmed with gratitude so much. And I have to put this out there. It's a little personal. But, you know, when my husband committed suicide, I was at that place where I didn't think I would ever get married again. Right. And this past year had my conversations with God is like, I am all yours. Whatever you want from me, I'm yours. Everything. And if I'm single for the rest of my life, then I'm okay with that. If I never get married again, I'm okay with that. I'm yours. And that's when he's like, yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a gentleman in my
Okay.
life.
That's good.
Right? I'm very happy. He's very kind, very thoughtful. And it's a relationship that I never thought I would experience.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now it's time for my God poem.
Okay.
Okay.
Because God is so good, right, ladies?
Yes,
Yes.
he is. Yes, he is.
If it wasn't for God, forget it. All right. I'm not ashamed to proclaim his name. I'm not ashamed, it's God I claim. The world stirs hate, but God stirs love. The world stirs hate, but God stirs love. The world's lost faith, it's found up above. The world says God's a myth. The world says God is fake, but God says I'm really here. God says I'm no mistake. The lost are broken, the broken are lost, condemning your soul, not sparing the cost. God says, listen, I'm here for you. Just come to me. I'll make you new. You laugh at him and curse his name. You dance with evil in this war game. Religion is false as can be, was made by man and not by he. Religion still has God nailed to that cross, making you think the church is your boss. When Jesus said it is finished, they took him off that cross. He rose from the dead so your soul wasn't lost. He no longer dangles on the cross from that day. He's free from that cross. Jesus now made the way. We wear a cross because we're his kid, to be reminded what this man did. The crucifix should not be worn. Religion keeps God on the cross in scorn. Man made rules to cost a fee, but the price of Jesus to you is free. Come as you are and don't pretend. He knows all things beginning to end. Religion is evil. It's caused lots of pain. God's full of love, and in heaven you'll reign. Growing up Catholic made me hate church. Priests hurting boys made me now search. I couldn't believe God was in there. To me, church was evil and filled with despair. Then I found God, the real one, I mean, not statues on crosses, but the God I have seen. I cried out one night, whoever's out there, please show me the truth. Does anyone care? It was then that I heard him as clear as can be. I'm here and I care. I made you for me. You are not alone. I will lead the way. I'll never leave you. Your price I did pay. I'll protect you and guide you as long as you want. Tell me your sorrows. I'm your confidant. I'm your heavenly father. You're my earthly kid. There was a price on you to the highest of bid. It was then that I marked you and said you were mine. I knew at that moment you were made to shine. I'll never put rules on the way you should live. I gave you free will. From my life I did give. You have the choice is yours. There are two choices behind the doors. One choice is distant and it will bring pain. One choice is closer and it will bring gain. The cross I was nailed to for you. Not in religion's name, it was you that I knew. Self-righteous will pay, trust me on this. If they ever judge you, them I'll dismiss. Everyone sins, that's why I came. No one is better than you in my name. Self-righteous will perish, I won't call them home. Stay humbled and loyal, and in heaven you'll roam. I can't come to you. This is important, guys. Listen. I can't come to you till you let me in. I'll open my arms and I'll cleanse your sin. Father God, I do thank you for sending your son to shed his blood for me. Then he said it was done. He said it is finished. Now listen to me. He never said religion would now set you free. Remember, religion was not in his plan when God sent his son to live as a man. Pharisees and priests were not living right. They judged and condemned, and religion would fight. God said, enough. I'm sending you my kid to teach you to love, exposing sins you hid. When Jesus took up the cross, he died on it for you. You now need to accept him so he can make you new. Ask him to take over because you are way too weak. I promise strength he'll give you if only Jesus you seek. It is finished were his last words. His flock will now be saved, marching in herds. It is finished, I know he said. Now you can live and not be dead. Ask Jesus to free you of bondage Satan holds. Ask Jesus to stand guard as the Bible now unfolds. All that was written is being played out. Will you be ready or will you have doubt? Will you be ready the day he returns or left behind to feel the burns? My prayer is this, that you take heed to know the reason Jesus did bleed. The time is near, it really is. Will you be ready to say you're his?
I love that.
Okay?
Beautiful.
And that's what I was just saying.
Okay.
I'm yours.
Uh-huh.
I'm all yours.
So, we just heard your entire story. I'm going to give you the mic for about 5 more minutes. If there's anything important that you want to share, anything maybe you forgot to say, tell them again how to get your books, how to reach out to you, everything. So the mic is yours.
Okay, so you can look on True Light's website is www.truelight, that's TRUELIGHT, recovery.org. And there's contact information. You can call for help. We've helped people all over the country. The sad reality,
Yep.
The sad reality is that we have a wait list. So I do have to open more houses. And I'm on Facebook too, TRACEY Long. I'm not ashamed of or afraid to put my name out there. I do daily devotions every day on Facebook. I do devotions. On Amazon, you can find my book, True Esteem. It's where we find our true worth and value. And like I said earlier, I spent a lifetime, in this world we talk about self-perception and self-image and self-esteem and self-confidence. And I lived most of my life working on my self-esteem. And I was an empty shell of a woman. But when I let Christ in to my heart, and I got into the Word of God and learned what the Word of God actually said about who I am and how worthy I am and how valued I am and how much he really loves us.
That's right.
Especially for somebody like me. There's, I've touched briefly on some stories, but there's so much. I could sit here for 6 hours, and not cover everything that has been done to me.
Right.
And, there's been abuse and so many different, rape survivor, domestic violence survivor, exploitation survivor, the drugs, the alcohol, there's so much. I've been beaten and left for dead in a pile of weeds, and I always looked at it like I was beaten and left for dead, left in a pile of leaves like the worthless piece of trash that I was. And I believed that wholeheartedly, that I was a worthless piece of trash. But the Word of God just, that's where I get choked up. Because, my mind is renewed. That is not what I think about myself anymore. In True Esteem, it's a workbook. So I help you work through insecurities and self-worth and fear and anxiety and anger, and I end with identity, because until you know whose you are, you got to know whose you are and who you are in Christ. You're going to struggle in life. It wasn't until, I really learned whose I was. And then with Breaking the Silence, I love in your poem that you talk about religion.
Yep.
Right? Because there's such a spirit of religion that is around here. It's everywhere. And, one of the chapters in this book is shutting the mouths of women. Women are 2/3 of the church. Okay? I think, and the statistics are in the book. You can look up Pew Research Center, but in the U.S., it's like 50 to 60% of active members in the church as women, and around the globe, it's 55 to 65%. And there's that many. So if women are almost 2/3 of the church, why are we trying to silence them?
Women give birth. There would be no men if it wasn't for women.
Well, look at Mary. God trusted a woman to give birth to the Savior of the world, to nurture him and to raise him. Yet there's people out there that say women are not trustworthy.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, and that's all I'm going to say. Get the book, Breaking the Silence, A Woman's Call to Preach, Teach, and Lead. There are so many women out there that feel they're called to do something but are being kept silent. That's Satan.
I know.
Like, see, he really is trying to keep
I know.
the mouths, because women united for the kingdom of God is a powerful force.
I know.
And he's afraid. He's afraid, and that's why he's trying to keep us quiet. Well, I say stay silent no more. Get Breaking the Silence.
That's beautiful. Well, first off, all right, Ava, we're going to let you have your last words. Go ahead.
Sure. This was a great show. Thank you. Such a pleasure and honor to meet you. And you can find me on Facebook, Ava Holly, public figure, and you'll find all the other links from there. Yet, so happy to be asked to be here with you, and thank you, Geri.
I can't wait to hear your interview, okay?
Yeah, I'm looking
So it's
forward
amazing.
to that. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
excited.
amazing. So, first of all, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to my bestie over here, my girlfriend Elizabeth. Thank you, girlfriend, so much. So she calls me up and she says, girlfriend, I have somebody that you really have to interview. And I said, of course. I said, well, who is it, And she tells me, and she said that she was at your place and she tried on some cool clothes that you just brought her today.
did,
So
yeah.
thank you. She loved it. She looked great in the dress and shoes.
Beautiful.
And so when she didn't really know your whole story, but she told me a little, just a little bit that she knew, and knowing what you did with the thrift store. I have no openings, guys, until August 1st. I am booked all through. Today, I booked my last 2 spots on July this morning. I got her a spot
I know.
because we had to. Okay? God said, oh, yes. All right? What you're doing is not only God's work, it's unbelievable because you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay? And he doesn't mind when we argue with him, okay? Because he made us this way. And he already knows who's going to argue with him and who's going to, but we're going to listen anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one of the things I was told, and I knew that I was stubborn.
Yeah.
Right? I am stubborn. I'm competitive,
That's
right?
right.
I've learned to turn them into assets
Yes.
for me, right? But I don't call it stubborn anymore. I call it steadfast.
All right.
So he knows I'm steadfast.
Okay.
Right? He knows I'm still, a little rebel, right? but he's okay
That's
with
right.
that.
He is.
And that's that comparison thing. I want to talk about that
Go
real
ahead,
quick before we
go
close.
ahead.
Comparison is a thief of joy. I would compare myself to other people all the time. I don't pray like that. I don't preach like that. I don't write like that. And finally, God, the brick, he's like, of course you don't. I made you. I made you Tracy. Tracy is exactly how she's supposed to be. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't think that I could never do that because, and you hear it said all the time, God doesn't call the qualified, right? He qualifies the called. And if you're called, he will equip you and qualify you because that is what you're looking at that. I was not qualified to do any of this. When he told me to write a book, I'm like, I'm not a writer. Guess what? I forgot about my love of writing that I stopped doing because all the chaos in my life. I love to write, right? But God made me how I am. He made you how you are. So don't try to be like everybody else.
And one of the things we learned in sales was don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle.
Yeah,
you know.
amen to that. Yep. Yep.
Well, all right, so listen, guys. If anybody out there is struggling with anything, not just, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with being homeless, anything at all, abuse, right? If you're struggling with, do you believe if God is real or not? Reach out to us because we're here to talk to you. We're here to help you. We're here to pray with you. Okay, reach out to us because God is real. And he will, look what he did for her. Look what he did for me, but what he did for her, forget it. Okay? Okay, mine is this big and hers is this big, okay? So look at this beautiful lady right here. Not only what God did for her, but now he's using her and she accepted the challenge. See, that's the thing. See, God can't tell you what to do. You have to accept it and say yes. He gave us free will.
Free will, yep.
He has never, ever imposed himself on any of us, and he never will. He already knew. He knew before you even went to jail. He knew when you were a brat. He knew everything, and he said, she's going to work for me. Okay?
Right? He did. Even before I was in
Okay,
my mother's womb.
that's right. He already knew.
Yep, I was created for a purpose. We're all
That's right.
created for a purpose.
Okay? Okay, all right. I have to read one more poem then. Okay, producers, we're not going to play my song at the end. I'm going to close with this poem, okay? So
Want me to
this...
play a banjo instead?
Play a banjo. Go ahead. Okay? Let me find... Okay, here it is. This one is called Utilizing Gifts and Talents.
Oh, I love this one. I love
Okay, I
this.
had to because
I like
of what
the
you
title.
just said.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So everybody out there, listen. We all have something to offer. But the problem is a lot of people feel like they don't and they're worthless, and that's not true. And then they don't even try to figure out if they've got something to offer. So God did not make any one of us any more special. Well, Elvis, he might have made Elvis any more special. No, God has never made any one of us any more special than the other person. We all have a gift. Now think about this for a minute. What if we didn't have sanitation workers? Okay, my girlfriend can attest to this. My house is spotless clean. My cleaning ladies are like, why am I here? I am organized, I am neat. Okay, I would go crazy if we didn't have sanitation workers, okay? Think about that. Think about people who clean your homes if you like getting your home clean. People who, everybody and anybody out there. Okay, my cousin and uncle, when I was growing up in Long Island City, New York, were sanitation workers. Some of my best memories are them coming down our road, 47th Road in Long Island City, on the truck, getting our garbage and waving and yelling. And we're all yelling, hey, Bubba, So think about that. Everyone has something to offer, guys, okay? So I'm going to end with this poem, and I want you to really listen to every word if you're struggling with your self-worth, okay? This is for you. Utilizing gifts and talents. We are born with talents, we are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used, God's gift to us, not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more, but then our job's to share them like this lady's doing, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. a living we can make by spreading them around, not just for the money, but to spread a peaceful sound. Think about the peace you have spread around to these people who felt none before, right? Don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self-destroy. Put your efforts forth. Do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second rate. Never hold them back or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Our gifts were made to share, our talents made to soar. Go through life enlightened, and then you can roar. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, your name, TRACEY Long, will live forever, baby, forever and a day. So go through life excited for what you sure can give. Now I'm getting teared up.
Right?
To yourself and others is our reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but our legacy lives on. So make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. You're an angel on earth.
Thank you.
Okay, producer. It's a wrap. Everybody share this show and give it to God.